Well, this is a title at this, but it falls in with the scriptures, and then it will kind of make sense a little bit. The King James Bible has almost 800,000 words to it, not quite. It's, of course, named King James because that's the person who's paying for it. So if you have almost 60 men, translators, these are all people that have more than just a doctorate in language. They have all these letters behind their name. And it took almost 7 years of translating from the Hebrew and Greek into English, that you realize from the history of man, from the beginning to the end, and I think that's all the words you used. So you had to choose your words pretty carefully. You had to decide which words to use and which words, leave out. So everything's important. So of, in, the, all of those are important words. Even numbers are very important. A sequence of numbers. Everything's important. So it made me realize in our story that even the number 3, when something repeats itself 3 times, 4 times, 7 times, even the numbers are important. The number 3 in the Bible represents completeness, wholeness, and harmony. Now, I didn't realize this because when I started teaching about Elisha, and then the 3 women, I saw that as 3 separate. I wasn't looking at it right. It's kind of like doing a puzzle. I don't know, how many likes to do jigsaw puzzles? I hate jigsaw puzzles. Anyhow, yeah. But it's kind of like you get the piece that's blue and it's like, I don't know, and does it go, is it sky, or I don't know what it is, the ocean, whatever. But you look at the picture, and you see the picture and you go, oh, okay, I think this one is maybe the clouds. It's neither one, you know what I mean? So when I had taught those 3, I did them as 3 separate lessons, but it's not until I got to working on it that I realized there's a sequence of 3s. So this is a picture really of the church. So you have Elijah, the prophet, who mentors Elisha, okay? He's called the man of God. So every pastor has somebody who's mentored them, who's gone before them. Then what you have is you have a group setting, which is the sons of the prophet, so that's the church as a group. And then you have individual stories, okay? So you have, that's 1, and then it goes 2, and then it goes 3. Complete. It's a picture of the church. Harmony. You go, wait a minute, there's one more. Disharmony. So you have Kasai, who is basically like Judas. Okay? So this is an absolute, you might say, realistic picture of what you would find in the church. So to me then, good, I learned a lot, that was good lessons, stop. And that's when I realized, no, there's more to this because it's not just the church, but then it's growing as a Christian. So I came to the next one, and that is, as I was doing this, this lesson, God brought to me this verse, this next set, okay? And this verse has always bothered me. Now, I don't know about y'all, but it seems terribly unfair. So somebody's your enemy, somebody's a jerk, well, not more than that. Somebody's your enemy, somebody's awful, they're terrible, and so they get off the hook by you being good to them. What's in it for you? You know what I mean? It's kind of like somebody that you just give them a blank check and they don't deserve any of it. But it says, but love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again, and your reward shall be great, and ye shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. And then the Lord kind of brought to my mind, that's the next set of lessons. Don't you see? You have Elisha as a church, and now the next 3 illustrate what Jesus told, and there's not 3 separate, it's 3 that connect as one, almost as a puzzle would. Now, what God does in this, and this has helped me to understand that verse more than anything else, because it's the basics of the ABCs of Christian growth. If you can understand that, it really does help a lot to understanding what Christ has taught. So what Christ does is he gives a statement, and then he gives a story, and with the story, you realize all the details of it. You know what I mean? You know how something sounds good, kind of like a Ponzi scheme? Like on your spare time, you could earn $5 million a year? No, it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? What they're not telling you is that you never sleep for 5 years. You know, you're never going to earn that type of money. So sometimes you have this as taught, love your enemies, but then you go, but I don't know how that works, or why that even seems fair. And then God tells a story, and you go, okay, now I get it. So God gives us two viewpoints. We have the human viewpoint, which was me, thinking that's terribly unfair. And then you have a heavenly viewpoint where God shows his purposes. Okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, but the 3 connect, remember? 3, it means complete, it means harmony. The 3 come together to understand one biblical principle. Okay? So, to start off with, who's the enemy? Okay? The enemy, of course, at this time is Syria. This is Syria in the green. So they have lots of enemies. The enemies on all sides. There's the Philistines over there. On your left, there's Moab, the Ammonites, the Edomites, and up there are the Syrians. Now, Israel broke in half, you know, became a divided kingdom after King Solomon. So you have Judah, and then the top half is called Israel. Now see that little dot over there that's below? Now that's Samaria. That's the capital. Now this is going to be important in our lessons. Slightly above it is Dothan. Okay? So that's going to, those two places will have to do with our story. Now at this time, the Syrians had gone out by company. So they would go in as like this group of bandits. The Syrians would. They would go down into Israel. They would raid villages, they would rob, they would steal, they would take back people as prisoners and sell them as slaves in Syria. And so they had done this all along. So it says, love your enemies. Who's the enemy of this story? Syrians. Okay? And they are the despised enemy. There's the other enemy. The other enemy would be the king. So for a century, for 100 years, Israel has gone so far from God. The very worst of their kings was Ahab and Jezebel, one of his head wife. He had other wives. And so for 21 years, and they murdered, it was kind of like the Hitler of Israel. They just murdered like crazy. And then Elijah the prophet, they would have murdered him as well, you know, but God protected him. Okay, so Ahab is killed in battle. His son, Jezebel's still alive. She's still alive even when the son, Jerome, is king. Isaiah was the son who he only 2 years, and then there's the son, Jerome. Okay? Now, he's from that same stock, that same crooked, evil family. Okay? Of parents. And he said, and he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like unto his father and his mother. Believe me, as bad as they were, evil as they were, he wasn't as bad as them. He put away the image of Baal that his father had made. Nonetheless, he cleaved into the sins of Jeroboam. In other words, he didn't leave, he still idol worship, which made Israel to sin. He departed not therefrom. So here is the prophet Elisha, okay? He is the prophet during the time of this king, all right? This is the king, the son, the father that tried to have his mentor murdered. He's also, he's a creep. But anyhow, so who are the enemies? Those two, the Syrians, and you would say the king. So, this is story number 1. Story number 1, the king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such place shall be my camp. So instead of going in, traveling all that ways in. They go in, they camp, they take out a city, they camp here, they take out another city. Anyhow, and the man of God, which is what Elisha is called, sent unto the king of Israel, here he sends a servant, beware that thou shalt not such a place, thou shalt not pass, that thou pass not such a place, for hither the Syrians are come down. And the king sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him, and saved him there, not once, not twice. Back to threes. 3 times. 3 times he saved his life. Now, in the culture, that is done. Let's say if I do you a favor, that means that, that you owe me. But I get to pick what you owe me. Okay? So I think if you save somebody's life, that's pretty big on the favor list. So I would think then it would go equal to save his life, right? I mean, 3 times. That's a lot right there. So basically, 3 times he saves the king's life. I would have thought, good. I hope he gets his. I hope he gets killed. I'm not going to really say anything because, see, the thing about it is that this was his enemy. So it had to be really a lot of obedience. That God, he wasn't friends with the king. He didn't say, oh, if I do this, this will make the king like me. If I do this, the king will be beholden to me. I want the king just to know the love of God. It was none of that. God told him, go warn the king because of the Syrian king. And he did that. That's what it is. It's basically obedience. And so what he did is he did that 3 times. And then the king of Syria, which is Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria, therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants and said unto them, will ye show me which of us is for the king of Israel? Okay, so who's the spy? Who keeps telling him where I'm at? Because one of you are the traitor. Now, here's where God shows us his view. And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. So you're in bed, and there's nobody in there. You say it, Elisha knows it, and he tells them. What a testimony for God. Did Elisha know that? Did Elisha know that he honestly had a testimony in a very heathen country? No. We see things from our viewpoint. I would have said, Elisha, why are you doing this? Why are you saving the neck of a king, and he's from Ahab's his father and Jezebel's his mother? Good grief. Let the king of Assyria have him. I mean, I wouldn't have done that at all. The guy's awful. But here it is. He did what God told him to do, and his testimony was not for him or for the king of Syria, but it was for somebody that was lost. By the way, how did the king of Israel, did he reward him? Did he give him a gift, even a thank you note? Nothing. Saved his life 3 times, and he never even acknowledged it. See? When the Bible says, do good and expect nothing in return, well, guess what? He got nothing in return. So I would say, from the human point, why even bothering? What's in it for you? Nothing. But then God's viewpoint is the lost. The lost see it. And it made an impression on somebody that was wholly unattached from Elisha personally. Considering that Damascus, how far that is from Samaria, you have no telephones, you have no TV, you have no newspapers. How would somebody that far know about somebody this far in their testimony for God? You see? God's viewpoint. God's viewpoint is that what we do is seen by other people we don't even realize it. Now, story number 2. You know, my sister used to always say to me, No good deed goes unpunished. How many times have I quoted that? 1,000,000 times! When I get it's at the short end of the stick, you know, I always say that. But here it is. See, so see up there, that top little dot, that's Damascus. That's her capital. That's where the servant is telling him that. And look how far Samaria is. So here's the top dot. There's a dot at the bottom is Samaria. The one above it is Dothan. You see how? See, they're not very far apart. So here it is. The king of Syria says, okay, I want this guy, whoever, this Elisha. And so he says, go spy and find out where he's at. Well, he was pretty much, you might say, a circuit preacher, circuit prophet. He was in different towns all the time. And he's in the small town of Dothan. And they said, yep, we found him. He's in Dothan. So he says, so he sends to all, they travel all the way down. He sends horses, chariots, and a great host that come by night to make sure that nobody escapes. Nobody sees them ahead of time, and they escape or they see them coming. So they come down through night. You might say like a surprise attack. So this is pretty much like, that's a Roman columns there. I couldn't find one that would be the medieval type. I couldn't find for that age, but I'm sure they came in like that. If you can imagine all these chariots, horses, and this great, huge host that have surrounded this town that is basically defenseless. So when they come through, everybody's dead. Except Elisha, that they are going to take back to Syria and probably slowly torture to find out why he's able to divine and tell where the king is at. So anyhow, they come and they compass the city about. So I would say, being this close to Samaria and considering that he saved the king of Syria, king of Israel, Jerome, 3 times, he's that close, he kind of owes it to him. He'll go rescue him. He'll go help him. I mean, after all, he did save him 3 times. So he will come and he will help him, he will rescue him, he'll feel beholden. Remember, I gave you a favor, you give me one back. I saved you 3 times. Here, this whole city is going to be destroyed. So, kind of, right? You owe me, come back, help me. Nothing. Well, too bad. Sorry guys, hate to see you all be dead, but that's the way it goes. You know, he's close enough. He doesn't come, he doesn't lift a finger. So I would say, so, Elisha, how that working for you? You saved the king 3 times, and because of that, you made the king of Syria mad, and now he's going to destroy the whole city and you. Why didn't you just let the king of Syria kill him? You know what I mean? No good deed goes unpunished. It's the way, the human way of looking at it. So the servant comes out, and he looks outside. He's risen early. This is Elisha's servant. And he goes forth, and behold, a host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? In other words, there's no escaping. They're all dead. There's no escaping. And he is like probably trembling. He's shaking because he knows the Syrians, I mean, they're not exactly merciful. They're just going to kill everybody and enjoy it. And so it's interesting because what he says, because this has so much about viewpoint, how I see it and then how God sees it. And it's interesting how many times in these 3 stories the Bible uses eyes. Open their eyes. Open their eyes. How many times can I not see it because I'm seeing it from this end? And he answered and said, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed the Lord and said, Open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And the mountain was full of horses and chariots, of fire round about Elisha. So he was like, they're all the way around. And he said, see, there's more of them that are for us than they're against us. That's when, bing, God's showing us from his viewpoint, saying, I see what you've done. I see what you've done good to somebody that doesn't deserve it. I see that you've done good to somebody that has wronged you. I see it, and I'm for you. Wow. I didn't see that. All I see is, well, Elisha, that was a dumb thing. Why did you help them? Look where you are now. God says, no, I see it, and I'm for you, and you were obedient to me. I'm taking care of you. And so what happens is he goes out there and he asks the Lord. He says, he says, I pray thee to smite this people, I pray thee with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. Once again, coming back to the eyes. If you point, they can't see. I think it scared them silly. And Elisha said to them, oh, this isn't the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Samaria. It came to pass when they were in Samaria that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw. And behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. Now, this king, Jerome, if I had a boot with a steel tip, I'm going to kick him so hard in the rear end. Like, you coward! You wouldn't even come to help the man of God that got you out of the clutches 3 times. And so he says, my father, which is of honor, shall I smite them? So what should I do? Should I kill him? Should I kill him? And he says, thou shalt not smite them, when thou smite those thou hast taken captive with thy sword and with thy bow. Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink and go to their master. And he prepared great provision for them. When they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syria came no more into the land of Israel. Wow. So that viewpoint would be, you would think, do you realize they could have slaughtered all of them? And he sends them back, what, to their master. So I would think, okay, no good deed goes unpunished. The king of Syria would say, I sent this great host to take Elisha. We would have taken him, tortured him, anything else. And here it is, he has shown this mercy to my army here. He has shown great mercy to them. He fed them, he sent them back, he didn't harm them. When he say, oh, thank you, Elisha, thank you. No, because now we go into story number 3. The 3 connect, you see. Number 3, you notice it says, and it came to pass after this. Thank you very much for nothing. And came to pass after this that Benhadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. Oh, thank you. Thank you for rescuing my whole army. I appreciate it. To the king of Israel, thank you. You saved me. I appreciate it. I mean, I don't think he even got a thank you note out of any of them. Are you kidding? Saves their lives, and this is what he does. They come back. Instead of being grateful, he says, no, I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to go to Samaria, we'll besiege it. Now, what you do basically is you just starve them out. So you have a city, and all the suburbs that they're fed by, the crops, the fields, are outside of the city wall. So your army that is sitting outside the city wall are eating, and they're all quite happy. And plus, they can steal from every village around and take whatever they want. And basically, those that are inside the city are starving. And if you've ever read about something like this, starvation, it is horrible. I mean, I remember reading in a history book about when the Yankees had besieged Vicksburg, and they were reduced to eating rats. I talked with somebody when we were in China, and his parents literally starved to death. They were reduced to eating grass bugs, and rats in China. I mean, I can't imagine to be in such a place where there is literally nothing. So how long did they besiege it? A year? 2 years? I mean, they're living pretty well, you know? And so I even read, as even in our present history, when Hitler, when they ran low on supplies, they just stole from all the countries that they invaded. So they ate, everybody else starved. So anyhow, so what happens during this time, and I don't know how long it's been, but the king of Israel is walking along the wall, and this woman comes to him, and she says, "Help, my lord, O king." And he says, "Well, the Lord do not help thee, when shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor or the winepress?" In other words, the cupboard's empty. There's nothing. You're not even going to find straw in there. There's nothing. There's nothing. I can't help you. And just so, when he says, "What aileth thee?" It's like, "What's your problem? What do you want?" And she answered, "This woman said unto me, Give me thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him. And she hid her son." As horrible as that seems then, it's not really so far back even in our American history. You all know about the Donner Party that came west? Yeah, they were stuck, and they couldn't go over the pass. And those that died, they were eating them. Yeah, I can't imagine somebody that starving where you resort to cannibalism. Anyhow, and it came to pass when the king heard the words of the woman that he rent his clothes, which means ripped them. And he passed upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth upon his flesh. And he said, "God do so, and more also to me, if the head of Elisha, the son of Shaphat, shall not stand on him this day." So whose fault is it? Elisha? Oh. The man that saved your life 3 times, the man that saved the life of all that army of the Syrians, it's his fault? Yeah, sure, it's his fault. Why not blame him? The thing about it is, somehow, I've always thought of somebody that do good, love your enemies. I always thought that person as sort of milquetoast. Someone pretty much that's a nice doormat, somebody that's taken advantage of, somebody that's weak, somebody that can't take up for themselves. You know, all the human analogies you put to that. Elisha was not that way. Elisha he spoke the truth. He spoke the truth. He was a man of God. But somehow the thought is, if you're a man of God and you speak the truth, you have to be mean. And then you can't be both. You can't be compassionate and speak the truth. But you see, Elisha was both. And so I'm sure he spoke the truth, that this is because of your sin, the sin of your country. This is because of the sin of your parents and you. This is the sin of our country that has turned away from God. I'm sure. And so he's blaming him. This is his fault. If God has brought this on him and you're a man of God, then this is your fault. And so what he does is, remember, Elisha is in Samaria. I'm thinking, what's he doing in that city? I mean, if I know that it's going to be besieged and that the army of Assyria, I mean, I think I'm going someplace else. Maybe like down to Judah, where I could be safe, or someplace else. Why is he there in that city? I think because he's preaching. He's preaching, he's helping, and that means he's starving with the rest of them. You see what I mean? And one of the things is that now he's at his house. Elisha sat in his house and the elders with him. Now, if you come to my house and you see the mayor's there, everybody from the House of Representatives, and the state senator's there, the governor's there, the city council's there, you'd be going, what's going on? Why are they all here? This isn't a social visit. Why are they at his house? They don't know what to do. The elders, they're the head of the family. So that means that people are saying, what are we going to do? We're starving, you've got to do something. And this has made them go to Elisha and say, what are we to do? And of course he's telling them the truth. You're the head of your families, and look how far that everybody is into idol worship and everything else. He's speaking to them. And then he also has said, God has said this famine will end. God has said he will deliver us. So anyhow, so he's explaining this to him. And so here it is, this king. Oh, he's such a weasel. So he sends somebody before him. Now the king doesn't do any of the talking. He lets his messenger do it. So king sent a man before him. Ere the messenger came to him, Elisha says to the elders, see how this son of a murderer. Yeah, his dad, his mom, they're both murderers. Yep, he's the same way. He hath come to take away my head. So the fact that he delivered him wasn't because, oh, I just want to be your friend. Let's all love each other. Group hug, you know, that type, you know, unity. We all love each other. None of that. The thing about it is he is what he is. And he said, look, when the messenger cometh, I know who's coming first, that little weasel messenger of his. He said, shut the door and hold him fast. There's not the sound of his master's feet behind him. So who does the talking? The messenger. And while he yet talked with them, behold, the messenger came down and said, behold, this evil is of the Lord. Oh, it's the Lord's fault. Oh, okay, Elisha, it's your fault. Now it's also God's fault. Why should I wait for the Lord any longer? And Elisha says, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, tomorrow about this time shall measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel. I mean, it's like less than a penny. And 2 measures of barley for a shekel in the gate of Samaria. And the Lord, whose hand the king leaned, answered the man of God and said, behold, that the Lord would make the windows of heaven like this thing be. And he said, behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but thou shalt not eat thereof. In other words, yeah, you'll see it, but you won't enjoy it. The thing about it is that when that right there, it just, you blame Elisha, you blame God. It's amazing who gets blamed for somebody's sin. But anyhow, what happens is, meanwhile, there's 4 lepers that are outside the city. Okay? Now you have to realize how hated a leper is. Despised. They are despised, they are hated, nobody wants to get what they have. They are the refuge of society. They're outside the gate. And they said, and it's also interesting, the 4, we're back to numbers again. There's no throwaway numbers. See, I would just add there's lepers. No, 4, it's important. 4 is used for 2 things. It's used for judgment, edification. That means to encourage. So, there are 4 leprous men at the entering of the gate. And of course, it is God's judgment. And then also now will be his edification. And they said one to another, why sit we here until we die? If we say, we enter into the city, when the famine is in the city, we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, let us fall into the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. If they kill us, well, we shall but die. Yeah, what have we got to lose? We're going to die. We're going to die, we're going to die. Either way, we're going to die. So let's go, maybe the Syrians will throw something for us to eat. But what they did not realize is that the Syrians, now this is interesting, because this was at twilight. It's not dark yet. At twilight, it's not dark. So you can see an enemy. That to me was so neat, because the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise. They didn't see anything, they just heard it. Hear the noise of the chariots and the noise of the horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the king of the Hittites, the king of the Egyptians, to come upon us. Therefore they arose and fled in the twilight. Hey, they can see. They can see there's no enemy. That just shows how of God this is. And they left their tents, their horses, their asses,
in the camp as it was, and they fled for their life. They just take off running. They take off running. And by the way, Ben-Hadad, he's running off with them. They all take off and they leave. And what happens is the lepers come and they don't hear anything. And when these lepers came into the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent, so they didn't hear anything. They did eat and drink and carried hence silver and gold and raiment and went and hid it. And came back again and entered into another tent and carried hence also and went and hid it. Then they said one to another, now remember, they are despised. They are hated. They are hated of everybody in the city. We do not dwell this day. It is a day of good tidings. And if we hold our peace, if it tarry until the morning light, now it's nighttime, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So why should they tell anybody? They're hated. They're treated like dirt. They got what they want. In fact, they got more than they want. Why should they help them? They despise them. They spit on them. They hate them. Why should they help them? You see? The human viewpoint. If I look at everything through the human viewpoint, I would say, yeah, look after yourself. If you don't look after yourself, nobody else will. I think I heard that on a TV program. I like the sound of it, yeah. I'll quote it and put it on my wall. Yes, you see, do good to them that hate you. Yes, they are definitely hated. So they go to the city, they come to the port of city, it's at night, and they tell them, they said, we went to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied, and asses tied, and tents, as they were. And he called the porters, and they told the king's household within, and the king arose in the night, said unto the servants, I will show you what the Syrians have done to us. It's a trick, it's a trick. They said, well, we have 2 horses that are alive. Where are the others? In somebody's stomach. Yeah, there's nothing. They've eaten them. There's only 2 horses left. They hook up the chariots. They go in. They look. It's exactly as they said. And so they come back. It's now morning. And they go. And it came to pass that as the man of God had spoken to the king. Just what he said. So, did everybody say, these lepers, oh, we hated you, we treated you like garbage and spit on you and cursed you, thank you, you saved our life, thank you, came back and told us? No. They didn't get one thank you, nothing, no gratitude. Did anybody go to Elisha and say, Elisha, this is just what you said. You said this would happen, thank you, you had this walk with God and God heard you, thank you. 0, nothing. Nothing. And this is my last slide. And it says, and the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So, I always get choked up this last one. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel. According to who? The word of the Lord. Is there any thanks to God? Do they say, oh God, thank you. We're getting rid of our idols. We're not... This is all false, it's a lie, we're only serving you, you took care of us, you saved our life, thank you. 0. This country, Israel, continued in a downward spiritual slide in spite of what God did for them. So, why do I think I'm better than God? Did I have a right to hold a grudge and say, well, what's in it for me? Why should I? No good deed goes unpunished. I help them. Nothing, you know. So, but it says, but love your enemies and do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. Hoping for nothing again. There's no repay on it. There's no, you can't cash that check. There's nothing there. You're not going to get anything back for it. And it says, and your reward shall be great. God says, I saw it. I saw it. I saw it. Your reward shall be great. And ye shall be the children of the highest. We're like our parents. Even if we don't like it, sorry Georgia, but it comes that way. We end up acting like the person that we're around. And if, you know, you're living with your parents, even if you don't like it, a lot of times you kind of end up acting like them. God says when we're close to Him, we start acting like Him. And that's what He would do. And He says, ye shall be the children of the highest. You'll be acting like your Heavenly Father. For He is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. I do a lesson, I cry, and then I think, I'm going to teach it. I'm going to pull it in and not do this. Therefore be ye merciful as your Father is also merciful. Boy, I was into all this till I come to the very end, especially because this is what God does for us. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, it helped me to understand this verse when it's put with a story. And to realize that the three aren't separate. They're connected. Now, the next ladies' class. Is there justice? Do those that have done wrong get theirs? Yeah, they do. And it goes in threes. The next three stories with Elisha. 1, 2, 3, they all connect. Yeah. They get theirs. They don't get off. They weren't given a free pass. Go to the head of the line. They get theirs. But God does it in His time, in His way. Anyhow, this has been an eye-opener for me. Been really helped me a lot, especially with understanding that verse. Okay, Georgie?